Hello everyone and welcome to Watch Complications. I'm Brian. Check out my site, watchcomplications.com. Subscribe here if you haven't, and follow me on Instagram at watch_complications. This is not a video I was planning on making. I had an order from a customer for one of my custom builds, Tea Party, which is my Wonderland series, and I was just going to put it together and send it out. But in one of my recent videos, I did a giveaway of a Pagani design PD 1649. I'll link it in the video, but I had reviewed the PD 1651, which is the Yachtmaster copy, and then the 49, which is the Tag Heuer Ottavia copy, and I decided to give that one away. It wasn't just quite to my liking, a little bit big for me. So I gave it away, and as part of that giveaway survey I had people fill out to submit an entry, I had a question on there about what kind of videos people would like to see from me, and overwhelmingly the comments were, we like the custom watches. We want to see you build custom dials, do more custom builds, customizing things like rotors and various dial textures and all that kind of fun stuff. So custom work was the overwhelming thing. And there were some comments about, yeah, we like the variety, keep doing what you're doing. But there were a couple comments also about pocket watches. So I did want to respond to that. I do have a few pocket watches that I want to get to. They need service, they need taken care of. This is just one of them. But yeah, I've got pocket watches, and you will see pocket watch videos in the future, both servicing them and some other information about maybe the history of the pieces that I have and some of the other stuff about, general history of watches and how things move from pocket watches to wrist watches. So that's that. But in terms of reviews, I do have one coming up, and I think you're going to be maybe surprised. I'm a little bit surprised myself for certain reasons, but it is this watch I have on today, so wrist check. This is the Rolex 114-300, so 114-300. This is the OP39. This is the rhodium dial, now discontinued. They only made it for several years, and I got my hands on one of these just as they were discontinued. And I don't know that I've said much about it yet. I've talked about some of the complications, how they work. I've mentioned one of my favorites is the small second. But I also very much like just a simple three-hand watch. I was looking for one. This was on the list, and it just worked out that I got one. Of course, there are reviews out there on this watch, but I'm going to do it my style, which will go in detail on the pros and cons. Yeah, there are pros and there are cons with this watch, and I will not hold anything back, both good and bad. My style will get macro views, all that good stuff. So that's coming up. Yay. Some of what's in this video might have been shown at other points in other videos, but people wanted more custom work, so I thought I'll just throw the camera on and record me doing the work. I'm going to put a logo on a dial, going to case the movement, I'll talk regulating the watch, and then it'll be ready to go off to the customer. It's not a ton of stuff, but figured why not show it. Let's go. There's not too much to this custom build Tea Party, aside from the fact that I've done a lot of looking and research into what type of case and style, dial style, strap style, hand style to get a particular overall look that I want to give a customer, and that's where I ended up with Tea Party. But the first thing I have to do is apply my logo to the dial that I've sourced, and you can see here that I have a dial holder that has the ability to accommodate a lot of different dial feet combinations. Sometimes though dial feet are a little bit larger than the holes, and I've made a couple larger holes. That's what's nice about these plastic holders. You can drill different combinations or sizes for what you might need for a given scenario. The dial is intended for an ST36 movement, which you'll see in a second, which is the same size as the ETA 64, 97, 98 series of movements. The only difference between those two is that the 98 has the small seconds at 6, the 97 has the small seconds at 9. First thing you want to do is get it on a flat surface, and here I'm just going to place it in my dial holder, secure that down like so, and then I'm going to look at it up close under my magnification and just clean up any little bits of debris or anything else that might be on the dial. Just a little bit of a cleanup session, just a couple little things there. Rodico, of course, watchmaker's best friend. Got a nice Bergeon pad underneath me. It's a 7808. Of course, watchmaking, you need to have the right kind of tools around. I do some videos on tools and stuff as well, so watch for those. I think I'm going to start doing some tool reviews too. Like sometimes you want to try one of these cheap knockoff tools, and that can be kind of fun to talk about the high quality stuff versus the knockoff stuff you'll find on eBay and other distributors and everything. All right, so that's cleaned up a little bit. I've also gotten tired of finger cuts. The circulation, they cut off too much. So I got me some nice pink gloves. It's always weird getting a shipment from a dental equipment company, but hey, these gloves are great. All right, so here's my logo. You've seen me apply this on other watch dials before, whether it's a dial that I've made or a dial I've sourced. And Eagle Logo is the company that I went through to get these made, but they're no longer operating, I don't believe, not this part of the company anyway. So what you want to look into if you want to get custom logos made at this sort of scale, which is quite small, what you want to look into is electroplated nickel stickers. That's really what they are. It's a very thin metal that has an adhesive on the back, and you can get lots of fine-tuned logos, words, I mean, you name it, in designs, and you can get in different colors. There's some different companies out there that do it, but look into that. I'll put the term and some links in the description below. What I have to do is separate the backing. So I'm going to pick this up with the Rodico. A couple fine pairs of tweezers. Make this job a little bit simpler. There we go. See there? Swipe that away. Rodico is your friend here. Other types of tools I use the handle of my hand removal tool, which is non-abrasive to the dial surface. Let me pop in here a little closer, and I will eyeball this. Hopefully my glasses don't get in the way. You can move it a little bit after you start to apply it, which is nice. Just to give you some context to how I do this by eye, I haven't gone into this much detail in other videos, is you can see this gap in the top of the hat, this triangle, this top one. I have a particular facet here that is meant to go right in the middle of that. And that's what I'm using as my gauge. And then, you know, the left to right and the twist in it, you might think of the angle up or down, is something I can do by eye. But I've got a particular point that I want to have at the center of this triangle, which will guarantee that this is right underneath the 12. Right, I've changed the tweezers to the top left corner to give myself a little bit more room so I could give you more of a view. I'm not going to let up from this until I verify I've got it where I want it. Let me show you another one. I'll show you really up close. Maybe you can see. Turn the right way. Get the light correct. You can see that those facets there are exactly where I want them in the top and bottom triangle on the hat portion. See that symmetry? That's what I'm looking for on this dial that I'm placing the new logo on. That will help me ensure that I have it visually centered and hard to see through the plastic. There you can kind of see a little bit. I've got it right where I want. So using these visual cues, even on this guilloche dial, to help me ensure that I've got this between 11 and 1, right under 12, the right distance from the top. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the reverse of my hand pusher, and I'm going to adhere this as best as I can to the surface by just calmly pressing down, pushing around on the adhesive stickers. Some fine pieces in here, so I also want to be kind of overall cautious of how much I'm pressing on other parts of the dial with my fingers around the sides. Want to keep this in as good condition as possible, obviously, because this is going to a customer. Don't need any dial damage, in other words. Take your time, be patient, as I always say. Okay, so that should be adhered pretty well. Again, back to the tweezers. Carefully find an end of this transfer paper that is sticking up a little bit. Stay away from the surface of the dial. And we'll pull it up. There shouldn't be any residue from the paper. If there is any, again, Rodico will help us do some cleanup if necessary. We'll slowly peel that back. Voila. That off. And then I'll do a double check on the logo and just make sure it's where I want it. Sometimes the holes around the sides and in the center will give you a false impression about how accurate you are with this at 12. And I want to take it off of there and just kind of set it down, hold it like that, and just check it this way. I'll hold it. All right, that looks pretty good. I hope you'd agree. And you know, these are handmade, sort of put together watches, so if there's a little bit of a quirk there, like maybe it's not perfect, like at a macro scale, that looks pretty spot on from left to right. But you know, if it's up or down just a little bit, twisted, you know, to the left or right just a little bit, you're not going to see that with the eye. And even if it is a little bit, it's not worth messing around with, messing up the dial sort of thing. And it looks perfectly fine. It would be an issue if it was off a lot, for example, one way or another. Once you get the hands on there and you have the time at noon, you know, 12 o'clock, then it might look weird if you don't have it in the center, but it's going to be fine. This one in this case is spot on. The next thing I'm going to do is get our movement. This is the Seagull ST36. I'm going to start by removing the, I call them blank hands, but they're the hands that come with the movement, just so they can ensure that it's working, or so you can ensure that it's working. So take those off. There's the seconds hand. And then we have a minute hand setting on top. And I'll just put a pair of tweezers under here and sort of give it a little pry up. Take those off. All right, so the things in play here are the dial feet locations, which you can see are sort of a funnel to help one make it stand out from the other screw locations on the plates and bridges, and also helps it, you know, slide into the right spot. So there's one here, just under 3 o'clock, so it's about 4:30, and then 180 degrees across, you'll see another one. Sometimes, depending on how it comes from the factory, you're never quite sure. You might have to twist the feet screws a little bit. You can see one down here, the other one's down inside of this hole, and you might have to open them up a little bit so that the dials sit flat, and then give them a turn and lock the dial to the surface of the movement, the front side. Don't forget the hour wheel. When you first start out, once in a while you'll forget this. You'll put the dial on, you get it in ready to put the hands on, and you're like, oh, there's no hour pin. It's because you forgot the hour wheel. And the dial washer. Put that down. Okay. And then we can set our dial on top. Get that in the right location. Okay. Check on the side, should be set in flat, which it is. Okay. Give it a little nudge down. And then we need to flip it over and lock the screws in place. By the way, the screwdriver for this particular ST36, these dial screws, is the white, which corresponds to a particular size. So I'll flip this over, and I'm just holding this up for the camera. And we'll do the first one. I'm going to give it a turn. And then I'll give it a test. Make sure it's secure. It is. Just one full turn, one full rotation. Should get it locked down enough. On the other side, I want to show you this. The screws aren't really screws on this movement. They're not threaded, is what I mean by that. Pop in just a little bit closer here. You might be able to see it. There's a little edge around the side of this pin, which keeps pressure against this plate, balance cock. And there's also a side of the screw that's flat, so you kind of know where you're at. Whenever it's turned to the inside, it's loose and you can pull the dial off and then you can lock it down. But there's some visual cues here, but these aren't actually threaded. They're just kind of like pins, but they've got flathead screwdriver slot on top so you can turn them. So I gave that a twist, locked it down, good to go. Again, at each of these stages I will look under the glass and see if there's anything that needs cleaned up. Look under the light, make sure there's no debris sticking around. The next thing I'm going to do is put the hands on, and I'm keeping the stem in for that reason, so I can make sure that the hour, minute hand are aligned correctly. So barely attach the tip of the hand to the radical, like that. And then just make sure to get that tube around the pin. And then I'm going to use my flat plastic to help separate it from the radical once I have it in the right spot. And then just give it a little bit of a push. Doesn't need to be too much. As long as it's on there and a little bit secure, should be fine. Okay, so our second hand is applied. Those can be tedious. I'm getting used to it. Tricks, time, practice, all them fun things. All right, putting fancy hands on Tea Party. And I'm gonna do our hand here. All right, got a push tool for this. The ST36 ETA 64 97 98 is 1.5 for the minute, 2.0 for the hour. So this tool has 1.5 on one end and the 2.0 on the other. And on this particular hand pusher, the red end is the 2.0, black end is the 1.5. Hour, minute. So 2.0 first for the hour hand. I do like using this hand tool other than the hand pusher for these. Gives you a little bit better feel for it. You can't push the hand down too far. Basically, you want to make sure, is it close to the edge on the wheel but secured all the way? And so I'll kind of look at it from the side just to ensure I've got it pushed down far enough. You also don't want it where it will interfere with the other hands. Something you always got to watch for. Anytime I see a piece of debris make it onto the dial, I remove it at that point. Let's push this in. Pull out the setting. Let's make sure this moves okay. I'll take this around, trip. Make sure it doesn't interfere with the seconds hand. And that is it's a little close for comfort. So either I need to push the seconds hand down more or lift the hour hand up a little bit, but I'm gonna push that down a little bit more, make sure it's down all the way. All right, so all I'm doing is I'm just testing, seeing how close these hands are to each other. Don't want any interference. Take that to 12 exactly. Something else I'll do at this point is give that hand a little bit of a clean. Okay. Same process, pick up the hand by the end. I'm going to set it down at center. My hand tool there. Use my Rodico to just nudge it to exactly at 12. Get it nice lined up and then give it a push. Of course, you want this as close to perfect as possible. So what I'll do is just barely nudge it, get it started. Then I use the plastic ends of these to kind of get them aligned. I'll give it a push down to lock it in place. Make sure it's nice and secure. And these hands are pretty forgiving. Sometimes you have to lift that minute hand up a little bit, give some separation between it and the hour hand. That looks pretty good. Use my Rodico here. Clean up the surface a little bit around there where I was putting the tools.
Give this a twist. So, clean that up a little bit. And then what I'll do is give it a rotation. Figure out, is it hitting the hour markers and 30-minute markers? 12. Get up here to 10, I can see a little bit better. Pretty good. Might need to move that hour hand a little bit. But basically it's a back and forth. Make sure you get them set up in a line. Nothing drive a watch enthusiast more nuts than having misaligned hands. So I gave the hour hand a little bit of a nudge with the plastic tool, got it perfectly aligned, and then I'll just verify everything, do a double check. When I hit 11, am I on 11? When I hit 12, am I perfectly aligned at 12? Look at that. Look at that. Looks good, doesn't it? We are spot on now. But the next thing I gotta do is remove the stem so I can put it in the case. Simple on these, it's just one little screw right here. We'll give that a little bit of a turn. Make sure this is in the time setting position. I'm going to use the red screwdriver for this particular task, not the white. By the way, the white's 140 and the red, which I'm going to use for the stem removal, is 120. These are sizes. These days I just go by the color. So I'll do what equates to 2 full turns here, and now I'll just pop right out. Now I already have a stem cut to the right length that I'm going to put in the watch, so I show on other videos how to cut the stem. I'll link that in the video above. So now we just got to put this thing in the case, and then we'll time it, and if I need to get back in the case and regulate it, I will. Here's the case. I'm going to use my air puffer and clean that out. My Rodico. Give it a once around. Don't want to make anything to fall into the case. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do is place the movement holder around the watch. And it should rest pretty smoothly against the underneath of the dial. There's a ledge there. So I'll place that down. Okay, and there's a notch there for the stem at 3. So that's really your point of alignment. You just want to make sure those are aligned. So I can twist that a little bit if needed, get it right at center. There we go. There, so movement holder on. Sometimes it's easier to put them on before it goes in. Sometimes it's easier to put them on after. Depends on the watch. Every scenario is a little different, seems like. Then, in my experience, it's easier to have that set down like so. I'm going to give this one more look, and then I'll set this down on top of that, and then flip it over. I find that an easy and helpful way to go about this process myself. And then this should slide down in pretty easily and set essentially flush with the back of the case. Coolio. All right. Then put the stem in. The best way to do this, I've found, is to put the stem in, give the screw about a quarter of a turn, and then you'll have enough friction that it'll snap into setting position, and then you can screw it down the rest of the way. So what I'll do is I'll do a quarter turn here. Gives me enough friction that'll go into winding, and then it will snap into setting, and then I'll go the rest of that turn and then do a second one. It should be okay. So winding should work. Pull it out to time setting. And that should work. Looks good. Put the case back on. As always, give this thing a puff of air. Rodico if necessary. The gasket is around the edge of this case back, if you're wondering. There is a gasket. See it there? It's black on black, so it's kind of hard to see. It's there. Trust me. Case back looking pretty clean. And I'll give it a lockdown. And I'm not going to tighten this up 100% of the way yet. I'm just going to get it where it's nice and secure. And then I'll put this on the time grapher, see how it performs. And then I can take the case back off if necessary easily. And don't over tighten it or anything like that. But then I can, regulate this and get the time right where I want it. That's that. I'll put the strap on it and give you a final look at it. And we're done. To just show you what you do is you can see this arm extending from the balance wheel, and you can see it's slow on this side, fast on this side. These all look different depending on the movement, but all you have to do is move this back and forth, and you're either going to lengthen or shorten the hairspring, which then either speeds up or slows down the escapement overall. And this one shipped with it almost all the way over here to fast. I had moved it to center, which was really slow, and moved it back this direction, got it as close to 0 as possible, and there we go. You can see here I've done some adjusting to get that beat error down, get the rate somewhere where it's reasonable given the movement. It's jumping around a little bit, but I'm going to let this run for a little bit and kind of see where I'm at in different positions. This has gone anywhere from about +1 up to -10. That's about the maximum range I've seen so far. So I'll do some tweaking, watch this for a little bit, see where it is, try it in different positions, get it as consistent as possible and as close to ±0 as possible. That's the really last thing, then tighten the case back down, and this will be off to the customer. And here's the final product on the strap. I do really love this combination and the overall design. I've been testing it, time's doing great. The Seagull ST36 looks really good through the exhibition back. I can put an ETA or other type of movement that's that same size in it, the ETA 64, 97, 98 series, but I think the design of the Seagull ST36 really complements the black case and strap really well. It's a sapphire crystal, 316L stainless steel. So that is 10-6 Tea Party. Hope the customer's happy. And it looks really good on the wrist. And brushed buckle to match. I hope this video scratched the itch for some of you who wanted more custom watches. I will continue to make these types of videos along with all the other variety stuff I do, which is one of the good things I enjoy myself about the channel. It's not one size fits all. You could find a movement review, mod videos, making custom dials and watches, obviously watch reviews and strap and accessory reviews. I've got some leather goods coming, how particular complications work. I do a little bit of everything, and I like having that variety. So more coming soon. Who knows what's coming next? And as I usually say, I am out.